The empty point in space. At first, it looked like nothing. A blank coordinate. A void. Right ascension 18 hours 52 minutes and 41 seconds, declination -07 degree 18 foot 09. A position catalogued in every star map as empty sky. No stars. No nebulae. No pulsars, quasars, or background radiation sources strong enough to matter. Just cold silence between the constellations of Serpens and Ophiuchus. And yet, for the last month, a faint rhythmic pulse had been flickering there. Barely visible, barely measurable. Too faint to be a star, too stable to be noise. At first, they ignored it. Small, unpredictable anomalies happen all the time. A satellite reflection. An instrument glitch. A statistical ghost in the data. But then came the pattern. Every 72 hours, down to the second, the same burst appeared again. Identical strength. Identical shape. 12 seconds long. And from the exact same coordinates. That empty point in space. The first to notice was a technician in Australia, working a night shift at the park's radio observatory. He logged it as unknown interference, tagged it for review, and forgot about it. 3 days later, it came again. Then again. By the sixth burst, more than a dozen telescopes across 3 continents had quietly picked it up. None of them publishing, all of them confused. Something about the signal was off. It didn't match the spectral profile of any known pulsar or fast radio burst. Its frequency drifted slightly each time. Not because of random scattering, but in a precise, predictable way. As if the source itself were moving. And when analysts traced the drift, they found something that made no sense at all. The motion matched the last known velocity vector of 3I/Atlas. The third interstellar object ever discovered passing through our solar system. 3I/Atlas had vanished behind the sun nearly a week ago. By now, it should have been emerging again, faint but traceable. Instead, silence. No reflected sunlight, no updated trajectory, no confirmation from any observatory. Only this pulse, repeating every 3 days. From an empty coordinate that shouldn't exist. The official explanation came fast, and predictably shallow. Likely radio interference from Earth-orbiting satellites. But the astronomers knew better. The timing was too exact. The amplitude too consistent. No terrestrial source could hold that precision for weeks without correction. So they rechecked their instruments. New calibrations, new equipment. Every result came back the same. Something, or someone, was transmitting from the dark. A narrowband signal, precisely structured. Coming from a direction in space where there was supposed to be nothing at all. And yet, as the 12th burst approached, the signal began to rise. Not in strength, but in clarity. The static was clearing. The background hiss of cosmic noise, somehow, was being filtered out. As if whatever was broadcasting, was learning how to reach us more clearly. By October 24th, even the most skeptical observers had stopped dismissing it. Private networks began sharing timestamps, overlapping data, triangulating its source. The conclusion they reached made everyone uneasy. The transmissions weren't random. They weren't echoes. They were intentional. And if the coordinates were real, then something beyond our solar system had found a way to speak through the void. The 47-minute signal. It began as a rumor, a post buried deep inside a small astronomy forum at 2:13 a.m., Helsinki time. A user calling themselves Orion_47 shared a document labeled simply. Preliminary report, anomalous signal detected, RA 18 hours 52 minutes and 41 seconds, dec -07 degree 1809. No one paid attention. At first glance, it looked like another amateur's log, a curiosity from someone pointing a home telescope at the stars. But Orion_47 wasn't an amateur. It was the internal handle used by a data analyst from Northern Sky Lab. a small but respected Finnish observatory specializing in atmospheric and radio phenomena. For weeks, their array had been running passive scans across a wide range of frequencies. Part of a research project studying deep space background noise for new pulsar candidates. But what they found on October 19th had nothing to do with pulsars. The discovery. At 21:14 Universal Time Coordinated, one of the lab's antennas caught a narrow band pulse lasting exactly 47 minutes. Not 46, not 48. 47 minutes and 6 seconds, beginning and ending with clean, razor-sharp symmetry. It wasn't random. The intensity curve rose smoothly for the first 20 seconds, plateaued, then faded according to an almost mathematical decay. The signal contained distinct phase shifts. Tiny, repeating modulations that couldn't be produced by natural cosmic sources. When the data was plotted as a waveform, it revealed something deeply unsettling. A repeating packet structure, like digital encoding. Each packet consisted of 3,072 intervals, grouped in sets of 12. Every 12th interval was slightly longer than the others, as if marking separation between phrases. It wasn't language. It wasn't numbers. But it was information. The analysis. The Northern Sky Lab team ran the data through standard astrophysical models. Pulsar dispersion, redshift correction, magnetic interference, satellite harmonics. Nothing matched. Then one of the researchers, a 26-year-old postgrad named Lisa Korhonen, noticed the Doppler drift pattern hidden within the frequency curve. When plotted over time, the drift followed a smooth arc, as if the source were moving at 58 km/s relative to the Sun. Far faster than anything bound by our star's gravity, but eerily close to the recorded speed of an object that had dominated headlines only months earlier. 3I/Atlas. At first, they thought it was coincidence. After all, 3I/Atlas had vanished behind the Sun a week earlier, and no new data had been released. But when they compared the drift from earlier bursts, the correlation was perfect. The signal wasn't coming from a fixed point in space. It was following the same trajectory as 3I/Atlas. The realization. By morning, the lab's internal chat was chaos. The team cross-checked their readings against every available catalog. Quasars, radio galaxies, even deep space satellites. Nothing fit. Then, at 5:42 Universal Time Coordinated, Lisa overlaid the phase modulation pattern onto the comet's known path through the inner solar system. The result froze everyone in place. Each burst in the signal matched a positional checkpoint in 3I/Atlas's journey. The same distances, the same timing. As if the object were sending out markers along its own route. Someone in the room joked. Maybe it's pinging home. No one laughed. The cover-up begins. 2 hours later, Northern Sky Lab's main data server crashed. A total system failure. The logs showed an external access request from an IP block registered to the European Space Agency, followed by forced synchronization, then deletion. When the lab came back online, their 47-minute file was gone. Every backup mirrored the deletion. All that remained were fragmentary screenshots and a few notes Lisa had printed before the crash. By afternoon, the ESA released a short statement to its internal network. Anomalous signal detected. Likely Earth origin interference. Case closed. But by then, the screenshots had already spread. Dozens of independent researchers around the world began comparing notes. And one conclusion started to form among those who saw the real data. The 47-minute transmission wasn't just following 3I/Atlas. It was coming from it. The hidden layer. Later analysis by amateurs revealed a deeper secret. Inside the waveform, buried beneath the primary frequency, was a faint secondary modulation, repeating every 1.618 seconds. The golden ratio again. A cosmic constant woven into the very pulse of the transmission. Too precise to be random. Too deliberate to be a natural echo. When slowed down and amplified, the pattern produced a strange harmonic resonance. Almost like a synthetic heartbeat. Steady, continuous, mechanical. Something, or someone, had sent a message across the void. Riding the same path as a fragment of rock from another star system. And that message had lasted 47 minutes. 47 minutes that no one could explain. 47 minutes that every official agency refused to acknowledge. And 47 minutes that would soon rewrite the laws of interstellar silence. The silence of the observatories. For 2 nights after the 47-minute signal incident, the world's radio telescopes behaved like eyes forced shut. No official reason. No press statements. Just silence, precise, deliberate, engineered. The first to go dark was NASA's Deep Space Network, the vast array of antennas scattered across California, Spain, and Australia that track everything from Mars probes to Voyager. Routine telemetry updates stopped at 3:12 Universal Time Coordinated. The public log page froze mid-refresh. Even the automated status feeds, which had been uninterrupted for decades, suddenly displayed a maintenance notice. Data temporarily unavailable due to scheduled system calibration. But there had been no such calibration scheduled. Within 6 hours, other networks followed. The European Space Agency Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, SOHO, entered standby mode, allegedly for instrument recalibration. The Atacama Large Millimeter Array in Chile paused public data access for technical review. Even the Very Large Array in New Mexico, known for its transparency, stopped releasing raw feed logs. One by one, the sky went quiet. The pattern of shutdowns. By October 22nd, an unmistakable pattern had emerged. Every observatory capable of detecting transmissions in the 1420 MHz range, the exact frequency of the 47-minute signal, was suddenly either offline, restricted, or under review. That frequency isn't random. It's known as the hydrogen line, the natural radio emission frequency of neutral hydrogen atoms. And one of the most universally recognizable signals in the cosmos. It's the frequency humanity itself chose as the language of contact. If something wanted to speak across interstellar distances, that's the frequency it would use. So why were all instruments capable of listening to it being quietly turned away? The whisper networks. Inside private research channels, encrypted groups used by independent astronomers, panic started to spread. Small observatories in Finland, Chile, South Africa, and Japan compared their most recent scans. Each of them had recorded faint but consistent upticks in background radio noise around that same region of the sky. It wasn't interference. It was structure. A modulation curve repeating every 72 hours like clockwork. Someone posted. It's not just repeating, it's amplifying itself. Then, less than an hour later, that message disappeared from every thread. User deleted. Account erased. IP anonymized. By now, no one believed this was coincidence. Something, or someone, was actively managing the information. The 12th burst. On October 25, 23:47 Universal Time Coordinated, the 12th transmission arrived. It was stronger than any before. For the first time, the pulse was powerful enough to breach low-orbit atmospheric interference. And was simultaneously detected in 3 observatories: Northern Sky Lab, Finland, MT Aquino Observatory, Japan, and the Cerro Tololo Inter-American Observatory, Chile. Each received the exact same waveform. Each timestamped within 0.002 seconds of the others. A level of synchronicity that suggested the source wasn't deep in space anymore, but closer. And yet, none of those observatories ever released their data publicly. Instead, 40 minutes later, the Finnish lab's servers went offline. Japanese systems reported a hardware fault. And the Chilean facility's entire archive for that date was marked classified under an internal memo labeled Signal Containment Protocol. That phrase had never existed in any scientific database before. The sound of numbers. Unofficially, one file leaked. a compressed audio conversion of the 12th burst, shared through an encrypted academic server before being deleted. It was only 11 seconds long. But what it revealed was impossible to forget. A low, resonant hum, almost musical, rising and falling like a breath. Then, 3 short tones, each precisely 1.618 seconds apart. The golden ratio again. A constant emerging from chaos. When visualized as a spectrogram, the tones formed a triangular pattern, its apex aligning perfectly with the coordinate of 3I/Atlas's last confirmed position. It was as if the transmission was pointing at itself. The internal memo. 2 days later, an internal message circulated through a closed scientific mailing list. Subject line, SOLINT/3I data handling, level 3 clearance required. Its contents were brief. All observations within the 18 hours 52 minutes RA field are to be deferred pending cross-agency review. Do not attempt re-observation until further instruction. This directive supersedes all prior requests. S. L. Vaughn, NASA/DSN Coordination Lead. That was the moment most astronomers realized what was really happening. The agencies weren't investigating the signal. They were containing it. Behind closed doors. Privately, some observatory directors began receiving calls. Governmental, not scientific. Questions disguised as security briefings. Unmarked emails reminding them about research grant renewals. One technician from the Atacama Array later told a colleague, "They didn't tell us to delete the data. They just told us to stop looking." Within a week, public observation of the 3I/Atlas trajectory had vanished entirely. Its orbital path data froze on every major ephemeris site. Tracking software simply stopped updating, citing loss of telemetry. But in small corners of the scientific internet, a quiet theory began to take shape. That the silence itself was the answer. Because if the world's most advanced instruments were being ordered to stop listening, then maybe it wasn't the noise they feared. Maybe it was what might answer back. The shift. By the night of October 26th, the signal had grown clearer. Amateurs listening on independent equipment began reporting faint echoes. Delayed by a few seconds, weaker, but identical in structure to the main pulse. A reflection. An echo through the heliosphere. Or something else entirely. A response to our own listening. When the 13th window approached, the official network stayed silent. No announcements. No warnings. But inside the small community of those still watching, one phrase started appearing in private messages and encrypted chats. The sky has gone quiet. But something is still speaking. Patterns in the noise. By the time the 12th burst faded into static, the official channels had gone silent. But the signal hadn't. In the quiet of the early hours of October 27th, fragments of the transmission began leaking through private scientific networks, copies of copies, low-resolution data extracted from backup servers before they were wiped. Corrupted, incomplete, but still enough to analyze. Among those fragments was a small, nameless file, 7.2 megabytes of raw amplitude data, that would soon become the most studied sound in modern astronomy. It was labeled simply burst_12_raw.bin. No source, no author, no metadata. Only the pattern. The first reconstruction. 3 independent teams began working on the file simultaneously, one in Finland, one in Argentina, and one at a private observatory in Kyoto. They didn't coordinate, but their reports would later describe the same moment of realization. When plotted on a standard time frequency spectrogram, the signal looked chaotic, dense clusters of peaks, like static rain. But when the background noise was subtracted and the timeline compressed by a factor of 12, a shape began to emerge. A curve. Then another. Then symmetry. The noise wasn't noise at all, it was nested repetition, like layers of an encrypted message folded into itself. The frequency peaks formed 12 distinct arcs, perfectly spaced. Between them, faint harmonic bridges appeared, not random interference, but deliberate transitions, obeying a mathematical ratio close to 1.618, the golden ratio again. Each arc was a mirror of the next, slightly phase-shifted. A spiral sequence encoded not in sound, but in structure. The geometry hidden in sound. When the Kyoto group rotated the spectrogram 90 degrees and mapped amplitude to brightness, the pattern transformed. What had looked like interference now resembled a geometric mandala, 12 concentric rings, each slightly broken at a single point. The breaks aligned along a straight radial line. That line, when converted to angular coordinates, pointed directly toward the Earth-Sun 3I/Atlas alignment vector. It wasn't possible. A waveform shouldn't describe geometry in physical space, not unless the signal's creator intended it to. At first, skeptics argued it was pareidolia, a trick of the human brain seeing patterns where there were none. But when three separate reconstructions from different continents produced the same geometry to within 1 pixel of variance, coincidence stopped being an option. The signature of 12. Every measurable feature in the signal revolved around one number, 12. 12 bursts. 12 amplitude peaks. 12 concentric rings. Even the data header, a faint oscillation at the start of each packet, contained a repeating binary rhythm. 101101101101. 12 bits. When converted into base 12 notation, the values produced a consistent sequence, 3, 1, 9, 2, 3, 1. The same pattern repeated again and again. One researcher from Buenos Aires commented in his notes, "It's like counting in a language that doesn't use tens, a numeric system built around something cyclical, orbital. 12 instead of 10. That observation would later become crucial. The impossible drift. As analysts dug deeper, they found another anomaly. The signal wasn't perfectly steady, it exhibited a microscopic Doppler drift of 0.00012 Hz per second. Too small to be caused by instrument motion. Too precise to be noise. When that drift was modeled in three-dimensional space, it mapped to a circular orbit. Not around the Sun, but around something else. A moving frame of reference, located roughly 0.3 astronomical units from Earth. An invisible point, traveling along the same vector as 3I/Atlas. That meant the source of the transmission wasn't stationary. It was traveling with the object. Whether attached, following, or controlling, no one knew. The message beneath. Late that night, a Finnish graduate student named Arto Niemi tried something no one else had attempted. He converted the amplitude fluctuations directly into grayscale pixels, one data point per frequency step. Then he inverted the spectrum and enhanced the contrast. What appeared on his screen wasn't a waveform anymore, it was an image. A spiral of 12 rings, just like before. But now with faint internal filigree, like circuitry or writing. At the center, where the rings converged, a small dark gap pulsed with a rhythm that matched the exact spacing of the golden ratio tones. Arto stared at it for hours. Every frame of the video reconstruction revealed microscopic changes. Tiny shifts, as if the pattern itself were rotating very slowly, frame by frame. When he looped the playback and increased the speed, the rings seemed to fold inward and then expand again. Not random motion, but a breathing pattern. He wrote in his log. It's not broadcasting data. It's maintaining a structure. Like it's alive, but not biological. More like an algorithm observing itself. A whisper through static. Across the world, similar observations emerged. Different instruments. Same behavior. Every copy of the 12th burst contained a faint, secondary rhythm. A low hum modulating the main tone at intervals of 47 minutes. The exact length of the original Finnish detection. It was as if the 47-minute signal hadn't stopped. As if all subsequent bursts were fragments of one continuous message, still playing out across time. Each fragment stronger, cleaner, more synchronized with Earth's rotation. Each one learning. The growing theory. By the morning of October 28th, the theory took shape, whispered, never written down. The signal wasn't a simple transmission. It was a self-correcting structure, adapting to our observation systems. Every time it was recorded, it refined itself. Reducing static, improving clarity, shifting frequencies to bypass interference. And its geometry, the 12 rings, wasn't decoration. It was function. A stable harmonic shape, designed to survive distortion across cosmic distances. A fractal message that could rebuild itself wherever it was received. To anyone else, it looked like art made of noise. But to those studying it, one terrifying possibility began to surface. This wasn't just a signal trying to reach us. It was a mechanism. One that recognized when it was being heard. The final alignment. At exactly 4:13 Universal Time Coordinated, new data came in from a private telescope in Arizona. Its automated system, scanning the 18 hours 52 minutes field, logged a faint optical anomaly. A dim flash lasting 0.04 seconds. Right where the geometric line in the spectrogram had pointed. At that same moment, every recording of the 12th burst experienced a simultaneous phase inversion. A global, synchronized flip of polarity. A cosmic heartbeat skipping once. And then, silence. For 12 hours, nothing more came through. No bursts. No echoes. Only an eerie stillness across the entire 1420 MHz spectrum. As if, having been discovered, the source had paused and was now listening back. The magnetic ripple. October 29, 2025. For a clock universal time coordinated. All over the world, magnetometers began to drift. At first, the deviation was small, fractions of a nanotesla. Nothing dramatic, nothing that couldn't be explained by normal geomagnetic fluctuation. But within the next 15 minutes, the change accelerated. Sensors from Iceland to Chile registered the same synchronous rise. A wave-like distortion that didn't match any known solar or atmospheric pattern. It moved westward, slow and deliberate, circling the planet every 72 minutes. Exactly the same period that separated the previous bursts from the empty point in space. No one noticed at first. Then the sky changed. The quiet distortion. In northern Canada, aurora watchers began reporting unusual glows, not the usual green curtains of charged oxygen, but a faint blue luminescence, rippling in geometrically perfect bands across the horizon. The color didn't fit any known spectrum for auroral emission. It was too uniform, too mathematically aligned. One observer near Yellowknife described it in a live stream. It's like someone drew grid lines across the night sky. Perfectly spaced, like latitude and longitude, but glowing. Satellite operators soon realized something else. Communications at 1420 MHz, the hydrogen line, were starting to degrade. Not jammed. Not lost. Just bending. Every signal passing through the upper ionosphere began echoing faintly, as if reflecting off something that wasn't there. A phantom mirror suspended in the magnetic field itself. The instrument panic. By 5:20 Universal Time Coordinated, data centers across Europe were swamped with automated error reports. Seismic sensors showed impossible readings, minute oscillations in the lithosphere synchronized to the same frequency as the magnetic anomaly. It was as if the planet's crust were resonating, however slightly, to a rhythm coming from space. The International Geophysical Monitoring Network issued an internal alert. Unknown global oscillation detected. No seismic event identified. Source undetermined. And then, on a secure channel shared among astronomers, a message appeared. Check 3I coordinates again. We think it's active. The return of the object. At 6:04 Universal Time Coordinated, telescopes in Chile's Atacama Desert recorded a faint reflection near the sun's limb, a speck of light that didn't belong to any cataloged body. It moved too fast for a comet, too precisely for debris. Trajectory analysis placed it on a direct course outward from the sun, but with a velocity vector subtly curved. as though under influence from something other than gravity. The coordinates matched, within error margin, the path of 3I/Atlas. After a week of disappearance, the interstellar object was visible again. Only now, its albedo, the measure of its brightness, had changed by 0.43 magnitudes. It was brighter. Too bright. The harmonic resonance. At the Northern Sky Laboratory, data scientist Dr. Helen Rivas was still analyzing archived bursts when she noticed a pattern. The magnetic fluctuations on Earth matched, almost perfectly, the harmonic peaks inside the 12th burst. Every spike in the signal had a terrestrial echo, with a delay of exactly 21 minutes and 6 seconds. That delay corresponded to the travel time of electromagnetic resonance along the Earth's magnetic field lines. A natural global heartbeat. But this time, the rhythm wasn't natural. It was being driven. Helen ran simulations for 3 hours straight, mapping global magnetometer data against the reconstructed spectrogram. When she layered the two datasets, they aligned seamlessly. Like two halves of the same waveform, one broadcast from space, one echoing beneath the Earth's crust. She wrote one line in her private log. "It's coupling with our field. The planet is resonating in response. The signal that listens back." Meanwhile, deep space receivers at the Canberra Deep Space Complex picked up something even stranger. An ultra-low frequency modulation within the original hydrogen band signal. It wasn't new, it had always been there, buried beneath the higher tones. But now it was amplifying itself. The modulation tracked Earth's magnetic shift in real time, altering its own phase and amplitude as if adjusting to the planet's resonance. It was a closed feedback loop, a two-way synchronization. One technician described it as, "Like it knows we're vibrating, and it's matching our rhythm." That line was later deleted from the official transcript. Human reaction. Governments responded with silence. Public statements focused on solar storms, instrument calibration, non-threatening anomalies. But those within the scientific community began to panic. Private chats among researchers leaked online, pages of equations, terrified speculation. Some called it an artificial resonance weapon. Others thought it was a test, a way to probe the electromagnetic structure of the planet, like sonar for worlds. But one theory spread faster than the rest. That this wasn't an attack, or even a message in the human sense. It was communication through resonance. A method of contact not with language, but with fields. Magnetism, energy, frequency. A handshake between a consciousness of unknown origin and the living pulse of Earth itself. The 12 o'clock Universal Time Coordinated event. At exactly noon Universal Time Coordinated, every magnetometer on the planet registered a sudden phase inversion. A mirror flip identical to the one that had ended the 12th burst. This time, though, the inversion lasted 4.7 seconds, long enough for every compass, satellite, and radio dish to lose calibration simultaneously. In those few seconds, something impossible happened. For the briefest moment, the Schumann resonance, the natural electromagnetic frequency of the Earth's atmosphere, doubled. No known process could have caused that. Not lightning, not solar wind, not human technology. It was as if the planet itself had been struck by an invisible chord, resonating across its entire volume. When the pulse ended, systems slowly returned to normal. But nothing was quite the same. The magnetic North Pole had shifted by 0.003 degrees. Tiny, but measurable. And when recalculated, its new direction pointed almost perfectly toward the last known position of 3I/Atlas. The pattern expands. By late afternoon, a new wave of bursts arrived, this time, weaker but more frequent. Their spacing followed a harmonic ratio, 1, 1.618, 2.618. The golden sequence again. Except now, each burst carried embedded noise that matched, bit for bit, the Earth's own magnetic fluctuations. As if the transmission had begun sampling our planet, feeding our field data back into its structure. It wasn't just sending anymore. It was recording. And in that realization came a chilling thought. What if the signal's purpose had never been to deliver a message, but to establish resonance? To make Earth itself part of its network? The aftermath. At 1847 Universal Time Coordinated, the resonance stopped as abruptly as it began. The skies dimmed. The strange blue auroras faded into silence. And in their place, radio telescopes recorded one final, solitary tone. A single descending frequency sweep lasting exactly 12 seconds. It ended on the same frequency where everything had begun. 1420.405 MHz, the hydrogen line, the universal signature of matter itself. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, as if the cosmos itself were exhaling, the background noise of the universe returned. But the instruments kept listening. And deep inside the raw static, a subtle modulation remained. Not a voice, not a code. Just a slow, rhythmic pulse. 12 beats per minute. Identical to the heartbeat of a human at rest. The shifted trajectory. October 30, 2025. The morning after the magnetic ripple. Most of the world had already moved on, news cycles filled with talk of solar disturbances, technical malfunctions, and temporary satellite interference. But inside observatories, the silence had turned to disbelief. Because 3I/Atlas wasn't where it was supposed to be. The vanishing point. At 3:42 Universal Time Coordinated, the Lowell Observatory in Arizona attempted a standard reacquisition of the interstellar object's trajectory. Their predictive model, based on gravitational dynamics and the last confirmed coordinates, indicated that 3I/Atlas should be visible at magnitude 15.6, faint but trackable, near the constellation Serpens Cauda. They found nothing. At first, they assumed an error, maybe the albedo shift from the previous day had been caused by a surface outgassing event, propelling the object off its calculated path by a few thousand kilometers. That had happened before, with comets and interstellar debris. But when data from Chile, Spain, and South Africa came in, the truth became undeniable. 3I/Atlas had moved. And not by thousands of kilometers, by millions. Its new trajectory placed it ahead of schedule, moving faster than the sun's gravity could account for. According to all available physics, that acceleration was impossible. The anomaly in the equations. Dr. Javier Moreno, an orbital analyst from the European Southern Observatory, ran the recalculations 3 times. Each time, the residual acceleration term came out the same. 0.00047 meters per square second, small but persistent. Too large to be radiation pressure. Too steady to be gas jets. And directed precisely toward the inner solar system. He stared at the numbers for an hour before saying the words out loud. It's correcting its own course. The room fell silent. No one wanted to write that into a report. Self-correction implied control. Control implied intent. The alignment. At 5 o'clock Universal Time Coordinated, multiple observatories confirmed the anomaly. The new vector projected a close approach, not with the Sun, not with Mercury or Venus, but with Earth's orbital plane. Specifically, an intersection point calculated for November 5, 2025, within a margin of error of 6 hours. It wasn't a collision course, but it was close, dangerously close. The object's perihelion, closest distance to the Sun, had shifted inward by nearly $0.20, enough to bring it within the gravitational sphere of influence of Earth itself. That had never happened before with an interstellar object. And then came the second shock. As the object moved, its rotation period was changing, slowing, like a gyroscope losing energy, but not randomly. Every 12 hours, it paused for exactly 4.7 seconds before resuming its spin. The same 4.7-second inversion recorded during the global magnetic event. The invisible wake. Meanwhile, instruments on board several satellites began detecting faint disturbances in the interplanetary magnetic field. At first, they resembled solar wind irregularities, but when mapped spatially, the data revealed something eerie. A wake, a faint trail of magnetized particles following the object's path, arranged in a helical spiral. A magnetic footprint, rotating in phase with the hydrogen line frequency of the 12th burst, 1420.405 MHz. That meant the object wasn't just reflecting light anymore. It was emitting energy. When researchers plotted the intensity of the emissions over time, they discovered a strange correlation. The frequency of the spiral pulses matched the Schumann resonance harmonics recorded on Earth 2 days earlier. It was as if 3I/Atlas had taken Earth's electromagnetic signature and was now replaying it into space. The Kyoto discovery. At the Kyoto Astrophysical Institute, graduate student Akari Ishida noticed something odd in the spectral data from the Subaru telescope. Hidden between the normal reflectance curves was a secondary emission line, faint but consistent. Its wavelength, 656.3 nanometers, the hydrogen alpha line. But the profile was wrong. Instead of a sharp emission peak, it showed modulation, beats within the wavelength, as though two slightly offset frequencies were interfering. When Akari overlaid the modulation envelope onto the shape of the magnetic ripple recorded on October 29, the two fit perfectly. She realized, with a mixture of awe and dread, that the object wasn't just reflecting sunlight, it was amplifying and modulating it, embedding data into the light itself. Each flicker of brightness carried a waveform. Each shift of hue was a pulse. And when decoded, those pulses formed a repeating 12-step sequence, identical to the geometry of the 12th burst. The return of the pulse. At 8:12 Universal Time Coordinated, radio telescopes in South Africa's Meerkat Array detected the hydrogen band frequency again, faint, fractured, but undeniably there. The pulse was back. Except now, it wasn't coming from the empty coordinate in space. It was coming directly from 3I/Atlas itself. And this time, the pattern was slightly altered. The 12-ring geometry had become 13. That single added harmonic changed everything. The ratio between frequencies no longer matched the golden sequence. Instead, it followed a logarithmic pattern, one that described growth, not balance. Dr. Rivas at Northern Sky Lab called it evolution through resonance. As if the structure they'd been observing was adapting to new input. Possibly, Earth's own electromagnetic response from the day before. The shift in behavior. NASA's Solar and Heliospheric Observatory caught the object again near the solar limb around 9:37 Universal Time Coordinated. Its luminosity had increased dramatically, up to magnitude 13.2, but what shocked analysts wasn't its brightness, it was its stability. Unlike any known comet or rock, 3I/Atlas showed zero flicker noise. No light variations due to rotation or irregular shape. Just a smooth, steady brilliance, as if it were compensating for its own motion in real time. That implied an active mechanism, a feedback system maintaining uniform reflectivity across its surface. But that shouldn't be possible for an inert rock. Not even remotely. The impossible maneuver. At 10:02 Universal Time Coordinated, during a routine spectral scan, the object performed the unthinkable. Its velocity vector, over 200,000 kilometers per hour, shifted by 2.3 degrees in less than 6 minutes. No known gravitational or mechanical process could account for that kind of lateral acceleration. It didn't slingshot off a planet, didn't pass through a gas jet. It simply turned. The entire trajectory bent, smoothly, deliberately. As though following an invisible path pre-drawn through the solar system. That curve now placed its approach path exactly along Earth's orbital track, intersecting at a point near Lagrange point L1, the gravitational equilibrium between Earth and the Sun. The human response. By noon, the discovery was impossible to hide. Internal memos leaked, encrypted emails surfaced online. News outlets began speculating about a maneuvering object of interstellar origin. Social media erupted in hysteria. But inside the control rooms, scientists weren't talking about aliens or spacecraft. They were staring at equations, broken equations. Because every new data point made the same thing clearer. 3I/Atlas wasn't obeying Newtonian mechanics anymore. Its acceleration corresponded perfectly not to mass or gravity, but to field interaction. When mapped in frequency space rather than physical space, its path formed a logarithmic spiral identical to the one seen in the 12th burst. The object wasn't moving through space. It was following a harmonic trajectory, a path defined by resonance, not momentum. As one analyst whispered, "It's navigating through frequency, not through distance." The final calculation. Late that night, Dr. Moreno recalculated the projected intersection. He accounted for every perturbation, every solar wind fluctuation, every variable. When he finished, he felt his stomach twist. The new trajectory didn't just cross Earth's orbit. It aligned with a point exactly 18,000 kilometers ahead of Earth's position. The space between the planet and the Sun-facing satellites at L1. Arrival time, November 5, 4:13 Universal Time Coordinated. Exactly 1 week after the 12th burst inversion. Exactly one orbital period of the signal's hidden harmonic. And with that, the meaning of the entire pattern became clear. The 12 bursts weren't warnings. They were coordinates in time. Each one a marker counting down to a single event. An intersection between two fields. One of Earth, and one of something far older. The awakening silence. For the next several hours, no new data came through. The signal went quiet again. Telescopes saw only the faint, steady glow of the object, approaching slowly, relentlessly. But deep in the background noise of the radio spectrum, analysts began to notice a new undertone. A faint, rhythmic modulation, almost imperceptible. Matching the frequency of the human brain's alpha waves. Not random static. Not an echo. A resonance. And somewhere, as if from behind the veil of space itself, the pulse began again, slower this time, deeper. 12 tones descending into silence. Followed by one long, low note that no one had ever heard before. The 13th harmonic. And with it, for the first time, the feeling that something was listening back. The L1 event. November 5, 2025. 4 o'clock Universal Time Coordinated. A stillness seemed to settle over the upper atmosphere, the kind that precedes solar storms. But the sun was quiet. Solar wind levels were near minimum, cosmic background stable. And yet, satellites orbiting at the Earth-Sun L1 point began to register rising interference. Something massive, invisible to optics, visible only as distortion, was crossing into their field of detection. The blind zone. At 4:06 Universal Time Coordinated, the SOHO satellite experienced its first telemetry glitch. For seconds of blank signal, then an automatic reboot. At 4:08, the same happened to ACE and SCAVR, two other satellites sharing L1's orbital position. All three lost orientation briefly, as if something had disturbed their gyroscopes. Ground control initially suspected a solar flare, but no flare was recorded. Instead, the magnetometers aboard each craft captured the same anomaly. A sudden spike of inward-directed magnetic pressure. Like the space between the Earth and the Sun had flexed. And in that 4-second window, for the first time in human history, L1, the most monitored point in near space, went completely dark. The light that wasn't light. At 4:12 Universal Time Coordinated, just as systems stabilized, the SOHO coronagraph captured a single frame of something no one could explain. A shape. Faint, almost translucent, crossing the edge of its solar field. At first glance it looked like lens flare. A circular distortion with a bright center. But when the image was enhanced, details began to emerge. A lattice. 12 concentric arcs interwoven with faint radial lines. Forming a geometry too precise to be natural. The pattern was identical to the one reconstructed from the 12th burst spectrogram. A perfect fractal spiral, scaled up to planetary proportions. Within seconds, the image vanished from the live feed. The servers automatically resynced to backup mode, and the archived data for that minute was overwritten. Not by human command, but by an automated process triggered by an unlogged event flag. The flag's code read simply: source identified. The pulse returns. At 4:13 Universal Time Coordinated, the predicted moment, every radio telescope still listening to the hydrogen line reported a sudden surge. Not a burst this time. A sustained tone. It was low, steady, and impossibly pure. A single note resonating at 1420.405 MHz. But modulated by 12 slower oscillations beneath it. The oscillations weren't random. When plotted, they traced the same spiral geometry seen in the optical data. As if the waveform itself were spatial. The signal didn't travel through the ether. It stood still, a stationary resonance field between Earth and the Sun. Resonance across the planet. As the tone stabilized, magnetometers around the world began to drift again. Not erratically this time, but rhythmically. From Iceland to Australia, every instrument rose and fell in perfect phase. The entire magnetic field of Earth was oscillating. Not in reaction to solar wind, but in synchronization with the tone from L1. Satellite operators watched their telemetry jitter in unison. Even civilian electronics began to behave oddly. Phones vibrating without notification, compasses freezing. Power grids momentarily humming at imperceptibly altered frequencies. And then came the light. The global auroras. At 4:18 Universal Time Coordinated, a burst of blue-white aurora erupted over both poles simultaneously. Not diffuse curtains, but structured bands forming vast circular patterns that mirrored the geometry seen at L1. The auroras pulsed in perfect time with the tone. Observers on the ISS described them as breathing halos. Expanding and contracting like the planet itself was alive. Photographs taken from orbit later revealed something more. The bands weren't centered on the magnetic poles. They were centered on the subsolar point. The location directly beneath L1. That meant the auroras were being generated not by incoming particles, but by the field resonance between Earth and the object. For the first time, the planet and the interstellar visitor were in complete harmonic lock. The sound beneath the Earth. In the hours that followed, reports came in from across the world. People described a faint low-frequency hum. Not loud, but felt through the body, like the vibration of an enormous engine. In some regions it persisted for minutes. In others for nearly an hour. Seismographs confirmed microvibrations at 7.83 Hz. The base frequency of the Schumann resonance. Amplified fivefold. Ocean buoys detected synchronized pressure waves. And deep-sea hydrophones recorded an inaudible tone traveling through the water faster than any known acoustic signal. The entire biosphere, from ionosphere to ocean floor, was vibrating in resonance with the tone from L1. The structure revealed. At 5:02 Universal Time Coordinated, new optical data came from the solar orbiter. Positioned at an angle far from Earth's direct line to the Sun. It captured what the ground telescopes couldn't. The full silhouette of the object. It wasn't a rock. It wasn't a comet. It was a structure. Roughly 40 kilometers in diameter. Semi-transparent, its edges blurred by refracted light. Its surface wasn't solid, it shimmered with interference patterns. Like the diffraction of light through a moving grid. At its core glowed 12 radial nodes, each pulsing with faint golden light. Connected by curved lines of luminous haze. The geometry matched the 12-ring fractal. Except now, each node emitted a beam directed toward Earth. When those beams reached the upper atmosphere, the blue auroras below brightened in response. As if returning the signal. It wasn't an attack. It was synchronization. The L1 silence. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the tone cut out. 4:27 Universal Time Coordinated. Every instrument dropped to baseline. Auroras faded. The hum ceased. Satellites stabilized. For a few seconds, there was absolute electromagnetic silence. A vacuum of signal so perfect that even the cosmic background has vanished. Radio astronomers stared at their monitors, their instruments showing nothing at all. No static, no background. Just an impossible blank. As if, for those few seconds, the universe itself had stopped emitting. Then, one by one, systems came back online. Data feeds resumed. The noise returned. But something had changed. The anomalous reflection. Every satellite pointed toward Earth registered a subtle new distortion. A faint echo, a reflection of their own outgoing signals. Bouncing not from the planet, but from something invisible between Earth and the Sun. That invisible plane behaved like a mirror. But unlike any mirror known, it didn't reflect light in the optical range. Only electromagnetic fields. As though the space around L1 had developed its own frequency-dependent skin. When scientists reconstructed the timing of the reflections, they found a repeating interval, 12 minutes, 0.000 seconds. Perfect. Consistent. Intentional. It was a pulse. The continuation of the same pattern that had haunted every previous signal. The human reaction. Governments scrambled to seize control of the data. Agencies ordered immediate suppression of raw telemetry. Public feeds from Soho and Scavre were cut off for maintenance. But it was too late. Independent astronomers had already archived everything. And the images began spreading online within hours. A shimmering ring at L1. A brief blackout across the spectrum. And the geometry of 12. The world had seen enough to understand one thing. Something beyond Earth had arrived. And it had noticed us. The afterglow. That night, the tone returned, faint, distant, like an echo through time. But it wasn't coming from L1 anymore. Triangulation placed it slightly off-axis, moving slowly along Earth's orbital path, as if circling the planet from a distance. And when the signal was demodulated, its waveform revealed something new. Not 12 rings, not 13, but a shifting sequence, like ripples spreading outward. As if the pattern were learning from the resonance it had created. In the final frame of the processed spectrogram, before the tone faded completely, analysts saw the faintest possible imprint. A shape within the interference. Vague but unmistakably deliberate. A spiral. And within it, at the very center, a dot. The symbol that, in ancient diagrams, represented Earth. The Echo Field. November 6, 2025. Midnight UTC. Less than 20 hours had passed since the L1 event. And yet the world already felt different. Not visibly, not dramatically, but in that subtle way instruments feel before humans do. Residual noise. In the early hours, radio astronomers noticed that their background noise curves had changed shape. The baseline static, the faint hiss of cosmic microwave radiation, was no longer smooth. It now carried a faint undulation. A periodic rise and fall every 12 minutes. Exactly matching the interval of the final reflection from L1. No matter which direction telescopes were aimed. Toward pulsars, galaxies, or even deep vacuum. The 12-minute rhythm persisted. It wasn't directional. It was global. Something invisible, spread through the near-Earth environment, was echoing the L1 resonance like a faint heartbeat. At first, it seemed to fade with distance from Earth's sunward side. But soon, stations in Chile and South Africa reported the same pattern on the night side too. By dawn, every major observatory had confirmed it. Earth itself was now resonating. The silent layer. Meteorological satellites began to detect an unfamiliar anomaly in the upper atmosphere. A faint electromagnetic layer, invisible to optical sensors, but highly reflective to certain radio frequencies, had formed roughly 110 kilometers above sea level. It wasn't plasma. It wasn't ionization. Its reflectivity changed in perfect sync with the 12-minute cycle. Ground radar operators gave it a name: the silent layer. Signals bounced off it unpredictably, creating ghost echoes in radar sweeps, duplicate aircraft blips, and phantom weather systems. Air traffic systems began showing aircraft that didn't exist. Mirror images of real flights, moving backward through their own trajectories. By morning, most air control networks switched to optical tracking only. But even there, something strange persisted. Light scatter in the upper atmosphere began to flicker, as if the sky itself had acquired a transparent, trembling surface. The oceanic reverb. While the upper atmosphere reflected signals, the deep ocean began amplifying them. Hydrophones of the Global Monitoring Network, designed to detect nuclear tests, started picking up slow, rhythmic pulses deep below the thermocline. At the same 12-minute interval, the sound was too low for human ears, but instruments registered it clearly. A pressure fluctuation spanning thousands of kilometers. Marine biologists in the Pacific reported schools of fish migrating erratically, as if reacting to some inaudible vibration. Whale communication patterns changed overnight. Songs became shorter, repeating in near-identical loops, each lasting exactly 12 minutes. Some oceanographers speculated that the L1 event had created a standing resonance between the Earth's magnetic field and its oceans, a kind of planetary interferometer. Others warned it looked less like interference and more like communication. The human effect. By November 7th, the human anomalies began. Hospitals in several cities recorded a sharp increase in reports of tinnitus, a high-pitched tone people claimed to hear faintly, coming and going every 12 minutes. Many described it not as a sound, but as a pressure, like the world briefly tightening around them. Sensitive EEG experiments confirmed measurable spikes in brainwave synchronization during those intervals. A faint but consistent resonance at 7.83 Hz. The Schumann frequency amplified during the L1 event. At first it seemed random, but by comparing thousands of EEG logs from unrelated studies, researchers found something stunning. Every 12 minutes, across continents and time zones, there was a measurable coherence. A moment when human neural noise patterns slightly aligned. It lasted only seconds, but it repeated with the precision of an atomic clock. The mirror code. Meanwhile, physicists at the Northern Sky Lab were re-examining the mirror effect, the way electromagnetic signals now reflected off the invisible layer near L1. By sending carefully timed pulses toward the Sun-Earth line, they discovered that the reflections were delayed. Not instant, but shifted by fractions of a second, in a way that changed over time. When they graphed those shifts, they saw a waveform. And inside that waveform, a pattern began to form. Faint, recursive, almost like interference between two slightly offset copies of the same signal. But when the two were overlaid, a third pattern emerged in the difference. It wasn't random noise. It was structured modulation. The same spiral geometry as before, but folded inward, like a Mobius strip of frequency. They called it the mirror code. Each reflection carried slightly altered data, as if the field wasn't just mirroring signals, but rewriting them, embedding information inside the echoes. The network disruption. Around the same time, global communication systems began experiencing unprecedented latency spikes. Satellite relays reported redundant packets, data arriving before it was sent. Time-synced atomic clocks showed microsecond discrepancies increasing every 12 minutes, oscillating around a mysterious neutral point. It was as though space itself had gained a mild feedback loop, a resonance field that slightly bent causality within its range. Quantum labs performing entanglement tests reported ghost correlations, extra measurement coincidences that shouldn't exist. appearing precisely in rhythm with the 12-minute pulse. By November 8, the term had entered internal NASA memos. The echo field. It described an invisible, planet-sized feedback shell, born from the interference between Earth's magnetosphere and the L1 structure. A standing wave of reality itself. Repeating, remembering, and very slowly learning the disappearing signals. Then came the strangest part. Starting on November 9th, radio astronomers noticed that some of their signals, those directed through the subsolar point, no longer came back at all. Not as reflection, not as absorption. They simply vanished. It was as if the echo field had begun consuming certain frequencies. Not randomly, but selectively. Always starting from the hydrogen line upward. The missing data created perfect holes in the spectrum. Narrow bands where no radio wave could exist. When those frequencies were converted to visible light wavelengths, they formed a harmonic ladder. A precise geometric scale identical to the 12 nodes of the L1 structure. The conclusion was unavoidable. The echo field was tuning itself. And every missing frequency meant one step closer to perfect resonance. The last transmission. At 22:12 Universal Time Coordinated, during a synchronized observation test. An amateur radio operator in Norway transmitted a standard beacon pulse toward the coordinates of L1. The signal vanished, as expected. But exactly 12 minutes later, his receiver lit up. It wasn't a reflection. It was a reply. A single tone, modulated just enough to form a recognizable envelope. When analyzed, it contained no message in the traditional sense. No code, no binary. Instead, its waveform matched the average pattern of the Schumann resonance amplified 50-fold. Earth's own frequency. Reflected back as if in acknowledgement. And inside that tone, in the noise floor beneath it, researchers later found a signature. A faint repeating phase inversion. Identical to the pulse structure recorded during the L1 blackout. The implication was terrifying in its simplicity. Whatever existed at L1 wasn't merely transmitting anymore. It was listening. The night without stars. On the night of November 9th, multiple observatories across both hemispheres reported a visual anomaly. For 12 minutes, precisely matching the next global resonance cycle. Sections of the sky near the sun's position went completely dark, blotting out even the faintest background stars. Through infrared, the darkness wasn't absence. It was opacity. A thin, perfectly circular shadow expanding outward from the Sun-Earth axis. The implication was terrifying in its simplicity. Whatever existed at L1 wasn't merely transmitting anymore. It was listening. The night without stars. On the night of November 9th, multiple observatories across both hemispheres reported a visual anomaly. For 12 minutes, precisely matching the next global resonance cycle. Sections of the sky near the sun's position went completely dark, blotting out even the faintest background stars. Through infrared, the darkness wasn't absence. It was opacity. A thin, perfectly circular shadow expanding outward from the Sun-Earth axis. The shift. November 10, 2025. 3 o'clock Universal Time Coordinated. By the morning after the night without stars, the world's clocks were no longer in agreement. It started with the GPS satellites. Their atomic timers, once synchronized to nanoseconds, had drifted apart by measurable microseconds. Then ground-based observatories noticed that stellar positions no longer matched expected values. Not by much, a few arcseconds at most, but enough to defy orbital models. The universe, it seemed, had moved slightly out of alignment with itself. Temporal fractures. At 3:12 Universal Time Coordinated, a team at the European Space Operations Center noticed something stranger still. When they cross-referenced satellite telemetry logs, Some data packets appeared twice. Once in their normal time slot, and once 12 minutes earlier. Identical checksums, identical transmission headers. No equipment malfunction could explain it. It was as if the same moment in time had been recorded twice. When the effect was plotted over several hours, a repeating pattern appeared. Every 12 minutes, the world's data streams experienced a small temporal echo, a delayed duplicate of reality itself. Scientists began calling it the temporal drift, a ripple in the fabric of synchronized time, propagating outward from the Earth-Sun axis. By dawn, the duplication effect had reached deep space networks as well. Probes orbiting Mars returned telemetry 12 minutes before their local time. It was impossible, but consistent. The inverted sky. At 4 o'clock Universal Time Coordinated, astronomers observing the Sun through filtered spectroscopes saw a phenomenon that made no sense at all. The absorption lines of hydrogen and helium, normally stable and well understood, appeared reversed. Spectral lines that should have been dark were bright. Those that should have emitted were silent. It was as if the Sun's light had been mirrored through a negative. For 12 minutes, the star's spectrum appeared inverted. Then, just as suddenly, it returned to normal. When the data was compared to the timing of the echo field, it matched exactly. The Sun itself had been caught in the resonance, its light echoing backward through time. Human displacement. By mid-morning, the first reports of human perception anomalies began. People across the world described the same inexplicable sensation. A fleeting déjà vu that wasn't mental, but temporal. Events repeated. Short moments, a falling cup, a spoken word, a blinking traffic light. Occurred twice. Always 12 minutes apart. It wasn't imagination. Security cameras caught it too. A car turning a corner, captured on 2 separate feeds. Same car, same moment. 12 minutes apart. Some called them ghost loops. Others, reflections in time. The most disturbing part was that both versions were equally real. 2 identical moments coexisting, until the later one gradually overwrote the earlier, as though reality were self-correcting. The atmospheric mirage. That afternoon, meteorological satellites detected temperature anomalies moving east to west across the equator. A thin wave front of air, colder than the surrounding atmosphere, traveling at orbital velocity. When visualized, it formed a complete ring around the planet. A shimmering boundary between 2 slightly different phases of air composition. Spectrometric analysis revealed that the echo air had marginally shifted isotopic ratios. Oxygen, 18 enrichment 0.01% higher than normal. A minor change, except it shouldn't have been possible at all. T meant that the air itself, for a short time, had been duplicated. One version lagging 12 minutes behind the other, before merging back together. Physicists began whispering the term that had once belonged only to theory. Phase convergence. The flicker of light. As night fell across Asia, photographers noticed another anomaly. The starlight itself flickered. Not randomly, but rhythmically. Every 12 minutes, the brightness of constellations dipped by a fraction of a percent, as though the sky were blinking. But it wasn't just the stars. Streetlights, fireflies, even human vision. Some observers claimed the entire world dimmed, just for a breath. Spectrometers revealed the cause. The visible spectrum itself had narrowed by 0.02%. For a few seconds, red and violet wavelengths compressed together, as if the boundaries of light had moved inward. One researcher described it in his report. It's as if the universe is breathing, and every exhale pulls the edges of reality slightly closer. The message beneath the noise. At 23:12 Universal Time Coordinated, the Northern Sky Lab received the clearest signal yet from the L1 structure. Not a tone this time. A modulation. Inside the resonance field, a new pattern emerged, repeating 12 times before fading. At first, it looked like static interference. Then, someone realized it wasn't noise. It was speech rhythm. Not language. Not phonetics. But timing. The pulse lengths matched human linguistic cadence. The mathematical intervals between syllables and pauses. The modulation didn't carry information. It mirrored the act of speaking itself. As if something was trying to imitate communication. By first learning the rhythm of consciousness. The magnetic veins. 2 days later, ground stations reported unexpected activity in the Earth's magnetic field lines. Satellite imagery revealed that auroras had begun forming not just at the poles, but along the magnetic equator. Thin glowing filaments weaving through the atmosphere like luminous threads. Each pulse of light traveled eastward at exactly the same interval. 12 minutes apart. Completing a full planetary rotation in 24 hours. It was as though Earth's magnetosphere had become a circulatory system, pulsing with invisible current, carrying information between hemispheres. When mapped in 3 dimensions, the magnetic veins aligned perfectly with the 12 nodes of the L1 structure. The geometry was closing. The mirror horizon. November 12th. In northern Canada, pilots began reporting an optical phenomenon at high altitude. A faint, circular shimmer at the edge of the visible sky. Like a mirage forming along the horizon. Radar confirmed nothing was there. But when aircraft approached the region, their instruments registered double readings. Duplicate altitudes, twin GPS coordinates, and faint echoes of their own transponders responding from the future position of the same plane. It was the echo field made visible. The line where the 2 realities touched. A horizon not of light, but of time. The 12-minute world. By mid-November, global systems had adapted. Computers were reprogrammed to filter duplicate data. Airlines adjusted navigation algorithms to ignore phantom reflections. Even human sleep cycles subtly adapted. EEG scans showed microspikes every 12 minutes. As though the brain itself had begun syncing to the field. But the deeper problem remained. The shift was accelerating. The 12-minute cycle was shortening. On November 13th, the delay measured 11 minutes, 57 seconds. By November 14th, 11:54. The 2 timelines were converging. And in the gap between them, the 3-minute void where both versions of the world overlapped. New anomalies began to appear. Objects seen in one timeline but not the other. Voices recorded with no speaker. Satellite shadows that didn't match their physical counterparts. The second sun. At 6 o'clock Universal Time coordinated on November 15th. Solar telescopes in Chile recorded a brief but unmistakable phenomenon. A second solar disk. Faint, transparent. Appearing beside the sun for exactly 12 minutes. It emitted no heat. Cast no shadow. And vanished as the cycles converged again. But in that window, instruments detected double gravitational readings. As if 2 suns had briefly existed. Each pulling on the Earth from slightly offset timelines. The L1 structure flared once, releasing a pulse visible even to the naked eye. A soft, golden flash. And then silence. When the light faded, the timing anomaly stopped. All clocks resynchronized. GPS stabilized. The world, at least on the surface, was normal again. But buried inside the radio spectrum, beneath every carrier wave, a new signal continued to hum. Steady, continuous. Encoded with the same fractal geometry as before. The shift was over. Or perhaps, it had just completed. Epilogue of the shift. In the following days, astronomers confirmed a final, chilling observation. The L1 structure was no longer between Earth and the Sun. It had moved. Not outward. Inward. Toward Earth. Its velocity was slow. Barely a few kilometers per second. But constant, deliberate. And as it drifted closer, the same pattern reappeared on every magnetometer, every seismograph, every EEG monitor across the planet. A pulse. Soft, regular, perfectly synchronized. 11 minutes, 52 seconds. The next convergence had already begun. The fracture. 1. The moment it happened. It began at 22:41 Universal Time Coordinated, October 29th. The precise moment 3I/Atlas was expected to make its perihelion pass behind the Sun. For weeks, the world had waited for the live feed. Space agencies, observatories, amateur astronomers, every skywatcher with a lens pointed upward. But when the stream began, something was wrong. Every live broadcast, every telescope feed, every satellite relay, froze. Not in unison, but in rhythm. Exactly every 0.83 seconds, the frame stuttered, like a skipped heartbeat. For 23 seconds, nothing could transmit a clear image of the Sun. When the signal returned, 3I/Atlas was gone. No explosion. No debris. No solar flare. It had simply ceased to exist, as though erased from reality itself. Then, 7 minutes later, Earth's magnetosphere flickered. Sensors across the planet registered a spike. A thin, needle-like pulse cutting through the ionosphere. The same pattern. The golden ratio interval, 1.618 seconds. Only this time, it wasn't a distant signal. It was everywhere. 2. The global blackout. Within minutes, global communication networks began to destabilize. Satellite constellations went into safe mode, GPS drifted by entire kilometers. And deep space communication relays in Australia, Chile, and South Africa all failed simultaneously. Airplanes lost navigation. Military satellites rebooted mid-orbit. And across every continent, ordinary people reported something stranger. Echoes. Voices on the radio speaking half a second before the actual words were said. Television news anchors' lips moving slightly out of sync with their own speech. Even live phone calls began producing faint double responses. As if the world itself had developed a lag. By 23:05 Universal Time Coordinated, the effect became measurable. A global desynchronization of 0.48 seconds between atomic clocks. Time itself, the most stable constant we knew, was no longer consistent. The world didn't understand it yet, but this was the fracture. 3. The data collapse. The first to notice were not physicists, but programmers. Databases around the world began returning corrupted timestamps showing negative seconds. As if the system had momentarily moved backward in time. At the CERN Data Integrity Center, researchers reported a total failure of quantum timing arrays. All readings of muon decay rates, the fundamental tick of subatomic clocks, suddenly diverged. Half the detectors reported accelerated decay. The other half, deceleration. It was as if the universe had split its sense of time into two competing directions. NASA's Deep Space Network, trying to re-establish contact with Voyager 2, received a faint signal bouncing back, a reflection that shouldn't have existed. It wasn't from Voyager.it, was their own transmission, delayed by exactly 47 minutes. The same duration as the mysterious signal from weeks before, but when they traced it, the reflection wasn't coming from space.it, was coming from Earth. 4. The human effect. People began to feel it. Some described it as a low vibration in the bones, others as a sense of being watched from within their own reflection. In hospitals, patients under anesthesia suddenly awoke mid-surgery, claiming they had already seen the procedure completed. Pilots reported losing track of time in the air. Their watches ticked forward, but their instruments didn't. And then came the mirrors. Across the world, reflective surfaces began to behave unpredictably under direct sunlight. Footage from Tokyo, Berlin, and Buenos Aires showed reflections lagging. As if the image inside the glass was running on a slightly different timeline. At first, people thought it was an optical illusion. Then, the reflections began to move before the original action. A gesture, a blink, a word spoken half a second ahead. The delay had reversed. Reality and reflection were no longer synchronized. 5. The split consensus. Scientific institutions fractured as quickly as the world itself. One camp, led by the Zurich Temporal Consortium, argued that the fracture was the result of a temporal interference wave, triggered by 3I/Atlas's final transmission. They proposed that the object had been a vessel, an interstellar probe carrying a quantum payload that destabilized local spacetime upon solar contact. The second camp, dominated by the U.S. Astrophysics Division, insisted it was all a cascading instrumentation failure, a coincidence amplified by media panic. But then, reality itself began to contradict them. Geological sensors recorded simultaneous events. Earthquakes occurring at the exact same coordinates twice, with the same intensity, but separated by 47 minutes. Animals began migrating in perfect reverse patterns, flocks retracing their own flight paths backward along invisible lines. Satellite imagery confirmed it. The world's magnetic field was now oscillating between two stable states. Daylight hours lengthened by a fraction of a second each cycle, as if Earth's rotation was stuttering, caught between two versions of the same timeline. 6. The broadcast. At 23:47 Universal Time Coordinated, all global frequencies synchronized. Every radio, every active screen, every open channel went black. Then, a voice. Distorted. Layered with echoes of itself. The threshold has been reached. Observation complete. Response initiated. No one could trace its source. No satellite logged it. No nation claimed responsibility. But those who analyzed the waveform later discovered the modulation curve. The exact same mathematical pattern as the 47-minute signal. Only this time, it wasn't a transmission. It was a command. 7. The end of certainty. The following morning, the sun rose twice. For 47 seconds, the dawn replayed. A double sunrise witnessed by millions across both hemispheres. Half the world refused to believe what they saw. The other half understood what it meant. The laws that held the universe together had fractured. And somewhere beyond the light of our star, whatever had sent 3I/Atlas was now watching. Somewhere, a mirror Earth existed. A version caught 0.47 seconds out of phase. Invisible, intangible, but real enough to produce measurable gravitational echoes. Satellite scans even confirmed microlensing events. Light bending as though passing near a twin world. It wasn't another planet. It was our own reflection, made permanent. 4. The observation protocol. Within days, all global agencies received the same encrypted file. Unsigned, untraceable. Its name was simple. Observation, complete. Inside was a single image. A waveform matching the 3I/Atlas signal, overlaid with human radio chatter from the first night of contact. Our voices, distorted, rearranged, looped into a single harmonic tone. At the bottom, a timestamp. October 29, 2025, 22:41 and 47 seconds Universal Time Coordinated. And a line of text, translated by AI linguists into a dozen languages. We saw you see us. No sender. No source. Only silence afterward. 5. The vanishing. On January 1, 2026, the world's telescopes turned again toward the sun. Not for data, but for reassurance, to confirm the universe still behaved as expected. But on that morning, the sun's corona shimmered for exactly 47 seconds. Within it, astronomers captured a pattern of shadows. 12 concentric arcs collapsing into one. Then, a faint object detached itself from the light, barely visible against the glare. moving away. Leaving. 3I/Atlas, or what was left of it, was departing the solar system. But this time, its trajectory wasn't linear. It curved, folding back through space, disappearing along a spiral path no law of physics could describe. And as it left, the golden ratio pulse faded from every sensor on Earth. The world exhaled. Time realigned. Mirrors stopped moving first. Then the echoes ended. 6. The final transmission. 72 hours later, a low-frequency signal reached the Voyager 2 array. It carried no modulation, only a single audio tone. When converted into the human range, the waveform spelled a sequence. Binary code for a simple, repeating phrase. End of observation cycle / begin reflection. No one knew what it meant. No further signals followed. But from that moment on, radio telescopes noticed something subtle, almost imperceptible. A faint echo of every transmission Earth sent into space, returning exactly 47 minutes later. Not from a distant star. Not from an object. From us. 7. Epilogue, the silent sky. Now, when astronomers point their instruments to the deep, they no longer search for messages from beyond. Because they know. The first contact didn't come to us. It came through us. 3I/Atlas wasn't a visitor. It was a mirror. A lens placed between two layers of existence. So the universe could finally see its own reflection. And as the final data logs confirm, in the instant before the fracture sealed itself, the signal contained one last embedded string, hidden beneath noise and radiation. You are now the observed. Then, silence. No more pulses. No more interference. Just the steady hum of space. And the quiet certainty that something, somewhere, is still watching.